In spring 2024, the handheld gaming market is kind of booming. The Nintendo Switch leads the pack, of course, having dominated the market for the last 7 years. And even though the Switch was sort of behind the times when it came out, because that's how Nintendo does things, and it really is behind the times today, it has no problem selling millions of consoles every year. Then, a couple of years ago, handheld PCs began to emerge, led by Valve's Steam Deck, and they finally gave Nintendo a little competition. These consoles offer the complete opposite experience from the Switch, with access to all the PC games you already own and as much power in the palm of your hand as you are willing to pay for. Plus, we often hear from friends that they would love to game more, but they don't want to be tied to their desks and living room TVs. There is a clear need for more options for where and how to play, and handhelds provide that. Just look at the PlayStation Portal, a handheld device whose only function is to allow you to play your PS5 without being tied down to one TV. No one thought that device would be widely successful, including Sony themselves. Yet, the customers saw the benefit of being able to remote play PS5 games anywhere, and the Portal became a success. Microsoft and Sony have been completely missing from the current handheld console market so far, and we know they want a piece of that pie. Let's talk about why we think that the current gaming landscape is absolutely perfect for PlayStation to launch a new handheld, and why this may actually already be in the works. Sony has released a few portable PlayStations over the years, starting in 2005 with the original PSP, then the PSP Go, Xperia Playphone, and the PS Vita. All of these consoles have been generally well received, but they are usually a little ahead of their time and thus very expensive to make. For example, people loved that you could remote play your home PlayStation console to your PS Vita. But to offset the very high costs to premium hardware, Sony has tried a number of different strategies, and most of them ended badly. Sony would try to keep the cost of the PlayStation Vita low when it came out in 2011, but they would make the peripherals, like the charging cable and the memory card expansion, proprietary. This meant that if you wanted to have more memory for your Vita games, it was going to cost you way more to buy a memory card from Sony than just picking up an SD card for cheap at your local electronics store. It would seem obvious now that you should be removing all the roadblocks people have to using the console they would want to. Give them tons of memory for a fair price so they can have space to buy tons of games. This is something the Switch took great advantage of. Let's hope Sony has learned from this mistake, because that's a huge reason those handheld PlayStations did not make it. Another problem was that Sony looked to innovate a little too much, putting a focus on expensive features for its handhelds that ultimately didn't matter much to most game developers. When your portable PlayStation features optical discs, which are much slower to load from than memory cartridges, that's expensive for no reason. When you put in touch screens on both the front and the back of the system, that's expensive for no reason. What about the ability to use a cellular data plan for on-the-go gaming, but you were forced to use only one specific partner company? Also expensive, also for no reason. Front and back cameras for augmented reality and nobody uses them in any games? You already know. So what do you get in the end? Ultimately, it's a system that could have attracted a much larger audience without those features, and a lower price as a result. But the future of a new portable PlayStation is very bright. Sony has the expertise to create a handheld system that is much more powerful than the Switch, but doesn't need to be as powerful as the much more expensive handheld PCs. Somewhere in the middle would be perfect. If the new PSP can run everything but the most demanding of the current generation games, that is okay, because the device will also function as a remote player to stream those high-end games from your PS5. And PlayStation has an army of some of the best studios in gaming making games exclusively for the PlayStation ecosystem. When Sony released some of its heavy hitters from top studios onto its handhelds before, the games wouldn't sell as well for a few reasons. For one, making a game with a very high budget on a system that has problems moving units, as we talked about earlier, means a lot of money goes down the drain. Uncharted, Killzone, God of War, lots of PlayStation franchises had big releases on the handhelds. A new game in any of these series is normally great news, but when the games are very expensive to make and they can only be sold to a very low install base, that's never a good investment. Sony lost a lot of money to expensive games like this with previous PSPs. To make sure this doesn't happen again, we expect that future portable PlayStation releases will also be available on the PlayStation Home consoles, and after a period of exclusivity, on other platforms as well, such as PC and competing handheld consoles. Not having a system with fancy front and back touch controls will help with compatibility as well. Sony has millions and millions of gamers who choose PlayStation Network as the ecosystem where they go to buy their games. Over the years since the last handheld, the PSN's library has become very versatile. Most games on there can be bought for one price and played on both PS4 and PS5, which is a feature we often take advantage of. There are as many small indie games in there as on Nintendo Switch. Games that don't need a behemoth of processing power like the PS5 to run great. So a huge portion of these games available on PlayStation Network will be able to run on a reasonably beefy handheld as well. Add to that cloud saving and the ability to end your play session on your handheld only to pick up and play on your home console right from where you left off. The PSN already does this so well. On top of that, PlayStation's ecosystem already contains great social features that are completely missing from Nintendo's handheld, like a friends list that is easy to send messages and gameplay invites to, and party chats that can be joined from any PlayStation system, from Discord, or from the mobile PlayStation app. Can you see why we are so excited for the prospect of a new portable PlayStation? Everything the handheld would need to be successful is built into the PlayStation ecosystem already available right now. All Sony really needs to do is avoid the pitfalls that doomed the previous consoles. Make memory and storage very affordable so that people can spend their money on games, not memory cards. Make sure the new console has a pack-in title, even something like Astro's Playroom, something small scale but fun and that can really show what the console is capable of, is great. Relax on expensive features that users and developers will rarely use. Make it super easy for developers to make games for. Games that can be played on any PlayStation system that can run them. This will lead to big third-party support. And of course, lean on Sony's biggest asset, its amazing first-party developers. Build great games that people want to play, not just huge games that are unsustainably expensive. Continue doing a great job of supporting your developers and your players by spacing out your first-party releases to make sure that there is always something new and exciting to play. And finally, be absolutely sure there is a plan to get consoles to people who actually want to play them and not to scalpers. If Sony does this, they should have a hugely successful portable PlayStation to add to their already successful home consoles. And we think Sony knows this. Rumors have been circulating that Microsoft, who is in a very similar position, is planning to enter the handheld market with a portable Xbox soon. And if Microsoft is seeing the advantages of taking on Nintendo's dominance, then you can absolutely bet that Sony can see it too. Don't be surprised if Sony drops an announcement out of nowhere very soon. Be prepared.
Prepared indeed. Thank you for listening.